guys, what's up? Today we'll be talking all about calorie deficit. What is a calorie deficit? How do we get into it? And are you a good candidate for calorie deficit? I will also answer all your questions you guys had over on Instagram related to calorie deficit. So we have lots to unpack in today's video. So let's get into it. Let's start with whether you are a good candidate to begin a calorie deficit. So if you have a background of yo-yo dieting and you're constantly have been under eating for a while, this is not the time for you to get into a calorie deficit. You need to live on maintenance calories for at least 2 to 4 weeks before you can even begin calorie deficit. So how do you know that you are on your maintenance? So during this time, you will be eating and probably have some sort of food journal where you record every single day what you're eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner at a very high level. You don't really have to go into too much detail here. You're going to just journal your food and write down on a piece of paper what you're eating. And then at the end of the day, you're going to put some bullet points in there indicating how you felt after eating those meals today, whether you were still feeling hungry after eating those meals or whether you felt satiated and things like that. During this time, you are also going to weigh yourself every single day. Don't get obsessed over your numbers on the scale. We are just collecting data here. You're going to weigh yourself every single day for the next 2 to 4 weeks. If your weight stays somewhat the same during these 2 to 4 weeks, that means you are eating at your maintenance calories. So now you have a good starting point. Once you have lived out your maintenance for a while, enjoy being here. Being on maintenance is a huge progress. Many women don't realize that, but living out maintenance is our ultimate goal. That would be the number one thing for you to do before you even get into a calorie deficit. Let's talk about whether it's a good time for you to begin a calorie deficit. In order for you to be successful at your calorie deficit, you need to be really on point with your diet, and you have to really give it your 90 to 100% full on effort during this time. So if you have a lot of birthday parties coming up or weddings to attend to or your vacation coming up, then probably this is not the right time to start your calorie deficit, and you may want to hold off on your calorie deficit plans. Instead, focus on just living on your maintenance calories during this time. Once you have figured out that, you know what, I am ready to now dive into calorie deficit, I don't have too much going on in terms of all these events in my life, and mentally you are at a happy place, that is when you should begin your calorie deficit. How do you know that you are in a calorie deficit? So once again, going back to my point number one, once you have determined your maintenance calories and you have lived it out for 2 to 4 weeks, now you know your starting point. So from here, you are going to decrease your calories by 20 to 30%. So I always like to start at a low end, because this is where you're not going to feel overly deprived and excessively hungry and cranky. Calorie deficit is not meant to be lived out for a long time. This is just a temporary thing that you're doing, and you're going to immediately have an exit strategy to get out of calorie deficit. We can get into exit strategy after a calorie deficit more in another video, but for now we are going to continue to talk about how do you know that you're in a calorie deficit. I personally like to calculate calories for myself because I am already a very petite person and I don't have a lot of weight to lose. So for me to be very accurate and on point. I really need to track my food because I'm also strength training. I need to ensure that I'm hitting my protein goals while I'm maintaining calorie deficit. So I personally love tracking and I have been doing it for a while. So if you are someone who doesn't feel comfortable with tracking your calories, then you don't need to. You're going to have to experiment for a while to see how you feel and if your weight is going down. So you're going to collect data during your calorie deficit by weighing yourself every single day. Again, don't get obsessed over this number. Please don't expect your weight to go down every week because it's not going to happen. Have some realistic expectations. We are just collecting data. At the end of the week, if your average of your weight is decreasing, that means you are in a calorie deficit. So now I am going to talk about your questions that you guys sent me over on Instagram, all related to calorie deficit. So if you see me looking down, that means I am just reading those questions for you guys. Question number 1. Why do I feel like I am starving in a calorie deficit? This is a great question. Calorie deficit is not meant to be fun. We are really restricting calories and we have a purpose of being in a calorie deficit, and that purpose is to get to our desired body weight or fat loss goals or whatever it is that you're looking to achieve from calorie deficit. And you have to understand that some days you are going to feel hungry during calorie deficit, and that is normal. As long as you are not starving and you are feeling super low in energy, cranky, upset, and moody, then if those are the things that you are experiencing, then that means your calorie deficit is too aggressive and you should immediately get out of it. But if you have a slight hunger to the point where it's tolerable, that is normal. Especially if you are, again, a very petite person and you don't have a lot of weight to lose. We are talking about less than 10 pounds of weight that you are trying to lose on a calorie deficit. You are going to experience some level of hunger. That is the reason why it's very critical that you pick your meals and have satisfying meals throughout the day. And you really need to focus on nutrient dense foods over having chips and crackers that are not going to fill your belly. So you're better off eating filling meals or having filling fruits and veggies that are going to satisfy your hunger during this time. Second question, calorie deficit without feeling deprived, recreating comfort foods with less calories. Going back to the question one's answer, you really have to mentally prepare yourself for this phase of your life. It's very temporary. You're just going to be focused on stay on track during this short period of time, and there's going to be times when you will experience a bit of hunger, and once again, if it's not extreme hunger, that is okay. Your food choices really matter at this point. This is the time when you want to minimize eating processed foods or junk foods, because those junk foods and processed foods are super palatable, super high in calories, and they really don't satisfy your hunger. So this is the time when you really want to indulge in nutrient dense meals coming from whole foods. So you want to incorporate ton of veggies. You want to also incorporate some sort of protein. Personally, if I don't have protein in my meal, I never feel satisfied, no matter how much fruits and veggies I eat. And it's probably also because I'm very active and I strength train quite hard. So that could be the reason why, but we are all different and unique. You have to do what works for your goals and your body type. It's not a cookie cutter approach, unfortunately, as many other influencers on this platform make it seem like. Just because so and so did that for their weight loss journey does not mean it's going to work for you. You are unique and you are living your life under your circumstances, under your stress levels, under your different unique situations. So you have to really experiment with yourself. And that's how I learned. I've experimented a lot. It's actually exciting to experiment with yourself and figure out, what food helps me stay more satisfied versus what doesn't. So for me personally, if I have a piece of toast with my veggies or tofu scramble, for example, I'm still going to be hungry. But if I replace that piece of toast with maybe some potatoes instead, I'm going to be more satisfied from that meal for the same amount of calories. So these are the mental notes that you have to make, or even again, go back to food journal. Write down on a piece of paper what meals you're having, and after each meal, how you felt that day. Did you feel full, or were you still feeling hungry? And make these notes and track these things, because these are the things that you're going to need to be able to successfully complete your calorie deficit phase. So, having a food journal is a really big thing, and I highly encourage you to do that. And in terms of recreating comfort foods with less calories, uh, everyone's comfort foods are different. I have a sweet tooth, and that is why I create a lot of dessert recipes that are less calories. So that's what I do, and I do share them with you guys as well. So you are welcome to implement them in your life. I have a ton of recipes on my website and also on Instagram and here on YouTube as well. So feel free to browse through those recipes and see what you like. Let me know if there's any specific comfort food that you're looking for, and if you are, drop them in the comment and I will see what I can do and maybe create that recipe for you. Question number 3, which kind of relates to question number 1 and 2 again: how to not feel super restricted in a calorie deficit. So once again, we are managing expectations here. You have to understand that this is temporary, and you are going to experience some level of hunger here, which is okay as long as you're not overly hungry. I personally don't believe in cutting out any kind of food group. So for example, if you are really craving an Oreo cookie during your calorie deficit, go ahead and have that cookie. But just understand that this little cookie that you're having is going to be more calorie dense, and it's going to not throw you off track, but it's actually going to save you in the long run from having binge episodes later. So it's important to incorporate some sort of fun foods as long as you understand the calorie density principles behind the food that you're consuming. As long as your weekly average for your weight is going down, you can incorporate a little bit of fun food during your calorie deficit. But you really have to understand, again, that you can't have 3 or 4 cookies, because that's really going to throw you off of your calorie deficit. As long as you can stick to just that one piece of cookie, it's okay. And that way it's going to satisfy you, and you just move on. And then just make good choices for the rest of the day and incorporate as much whole foods coming from fruits, veggies, and protein sources into your diet. You'll be fine. How to create a calorie deficit while still meeting protein goals. So this is a good question, and this is something that I do. I track my calories to ensure that I am hitting my protein targets, because I still continue to lift heavy during my calorie deficit. So in my app that I personally use called Chronometer, that is the app that I use. You are welcome to use that app as well. It's free download on Apple and Android. I work from home and I've been doing this for a while, so I'm really good with tracking my macros. That is, again, another video for another day. If you really want me to get into it, I can really show you guys how to do that in detail in another video. But for now, that is what I do. I measure out my protein. I always prioritize my protein first at each meal. And again, my primary protein sources are tofu, tempeh, seitan, TVP, and protein powder. And sometimes, on rare occasion, I will have a tofu burger, which is a little bit processed, or some other full meal. I always make sure at each meal I am targeting about 35 grams of protein for my personal goals. And then I will have my veggies, and then I will add a little bit of carbs. And that is how I plate my meals. So again, by tracking these calories and entering into the app how many grams of tofu I'm having or how many grams of seitan nuggets I'm having, it really helps me stay on track with hitting my protein targets. So as long as you're basing your meals around your protein, I believe you can hit your protein targets as well. How to know that I'm in a calorie deficit? I think I already kind of covered that in the beginning of this video, but I'll quickly touch base on some of the points again. If you're counting calories, you can go by online calculators that are out there. All you have to do is just type TDEE in Google, and very first link that comes in, you enter your weight, your height, your gender, and your activity level. And based on that, it's going to give you a number. Just know that though, that this number is very arbitrary and it's just meant for big population. It's very generic. It's not going to be exactly your number. So this is going to be a range. So you can start with that number and maybe decrease your calories by 20%. Or again, if you know that you've been maintaining your weight for the last 4 weeks, then from there you can decrease your calories. And how do you decrease your calories if you are not tracking? That is something that you're going to have to experiment a little bit by decreasing your carb intake during each meal. And increasing more veggies. If your weight is going down and your clothes are fitting looser, that is when you know that you're in a calorie deficit. Here we should bulk up on non-starchy veggies to lower calorie density, but that still leaves me feeling hungry. This is a great question. And I hear you. I personally could not live on just veggies and eating like huge amounts of insane big plates of vegetables. I would also really feel bloated and uncomfortable eating that way. What I come to realize during my fitness journey is that what keeps me satiated is protein. And if I don't have my tofu or tempeh or seitan in my meals, no matter how much veggies I eat, I will not feel satisfied. That's just me and my preference. And again, I'm doing this according to my personal goals. You have to do what works for you. So if you find that all these high volume veggies are not helping you stay full and satisfied, then do add some sort of protein with your meal. Include some sort of tofu, tempeh, seitan, TVP into your meals, and then monitor how you feel after. Again, having a food journal is critical. Write down after your breakfast, lunch, or dinner that you had this meal and how your hunger level was. Rate yourself from scale of 1 to 10, and also maybe incorporate some sort of potatoes. I find that potatoes are very satisfying. I hope that answers your question. How large should be the calorie deficit to be safe and effective? Excellent question. And again, it's going to depend on an individual. If you go really aggressive, you're probably going to fail. And the reason I say that is an aggressive calorie deficit is not sustainable. It's like mentally playing mind games. And mentally, you're not going to be at a happy place. You're going to feel cranky, moody, and you're not going to be able to attend any social events if your calorie deficit is very steep. So you always want to start with maybe 15 to 20% of calorie deficit, and that will give you a little bit of wiggle room to be able to maybe go out with your family during your calorie deficit for at least one meal. So again, it depends on an individual. I would not start a calorie deficit aggressively. Monitor and see how you feel. How to tweak meals, how to calculate for women, and how to manage hunger and meal ideas. If you're not tracking, it's going to be a little bit harder, but if you do track, then it becomes easier, because what tracking also teaches you in an app, once you start entering everything that you're putting in your mouth, it really brings awareness that how calories quickly add up, especially if they're coming from processed foods or oils or nuts and butters, things like that. So tracking really is a great exercise for anyone to understand nutrition. And it's really exciting to actually see how calories add up and how insanely easy it is for all of us to just overeat on a day-to-day basis. If you're not tracking, then again, you really want to minimize processed foods and stick to more whole foods, a lot more veggies into your diet at every meal. My personal favorite veggies during a calorie deficit is cabbage, broccoli, kale, mushrooms, bell peppers, zucchinis, because they're very filling and they're super low in calories. So you'll have to play around and see. And also, if you feel that you're hungry, then incorporate some sort of protein source. And how to manage hunger? Again, you know that it's calorie deficit. There's going to be some sort of hunger that's going to set in. And in terms of managing that hunger, instead of relying on food, maybe chew a gum. That really helps me when I'm trying to be in a calorie deficit, or I will go for a walk. That will take my mind off of focusing on food constantly, and listen to a podcast. Sometimes drinking sparkling water also helps. If that doesn't work, you can also try brushing your tongue with toothpaste. I know it's silly, but it really does work, because when you have that minty taste on your tongue, you don't feel like eating. These are some of the tips and tricks that I do during my calorie deficit to manage my hunger. Do you have to count all your veggies when in calorie deficit? I hear different things about this. Um, you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you do track, you have to understand that veggies have calories as well. So some veggies have less calories compared to the other veggies. The veggies that I mentioned earlier, like cabbage, you can eat insane amounts of cabbage and you'll have like a lot less calories compared to if you were to eat pumpkin or if you were to eat carrots. I track everything, so for me, I count them in. But tracking is very easy for me. With my eyes closed, I can do my tracking. But if you find that it's really challenging for you mentally to track everything, then you don't have to. As long as you are incorporating non-starchy veggies, they're super low in calories. Another favorite veggie of mine is mushrooms or even zucchini, kale, bok choy. These are these are the veggies that are super low in calories, so you can just start incorporating them in your meals, and maybe track, be mindful of your carbs. Carbs do have a lot more calories compared to fruits and vegetables, so be mindful of whole grains and lentils and beans. They are more higher in calories compared to vegetables. So these are all the questions that you guys sent me over on Instagram. I really hope that you found the answer to these questions helpful. And if you did, then please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. If you guys have any questions, please drop them in the comments and I would love to connect with you. I hope you all have a lovely day, and I will see you guys very soon on my next one.